Welcome to the Smarter Money Life podcast powered by Forum Credit Union, your go-to podcast for all things personal finance, where we break down complex financial concepts into simple, actionable steps. Whether you're looking to save more, invest wisely, or plan for your future, we've got you covered. Join us each episode as we bring you expert insights, real-life stories, and practical tips to help you live a smarter money life. Welcome to another episode of the Smarter Money Life podcast powered by Forum Credit Union. I'm your host, Andy Mattingly, and today we're diving into a really fun topic if you have kids. Well, maybe you don't think it's a fun topic, but when your 18-year-old is ready to go out on their own, even if it's just to college, there are a few money concepts they need to understand. So it is a significant milestone, and it's kind of really the beginning of financial independence and responsibility for your children. So let's cover some of these essential money concepts that every 18-year-old should grasp so that you can set them up and themselves for a successful financial future. Now, first, it's about managing a financial account. It's kind of the first step towards this financial independence. They've maybe had a savings, maybe you've even given them a checking account with a debit card. But now they're going to need to manage it on their own. You need to turn that over to them. They are 18 after all. So make sure you have the right financial institution and the right account that suits their needs. That way they can understand the terms and conditions and making sure that they're avoiding fees and making sure the account works for what they need in the next phase of their life. You also need to talk about budgeting. Understanding how to manage income and expenses effectively is kind of a crucial thing. Now, you can even share with them, the popular 50-30-20 budget, talking about needs, wants, and savings, because you really need to establish savings, even if they're in college, that they need to save some for future things. And you can also talk about having a weekly spending limit if that works better. And then we've already talked about it, but savings is an important concept. So talk to them about setting aside money for future needs. So maybe they want to go on spring break. Well, make sure they're starting to save money so they can go for spring break on some of the money that they're getting in. You can also talk about how that in early investing and savings, you get this compound interest and you make your money work for you. And speaking of investing, they need to understand that the benefits of starting early can make a huge difference. So if they have summer jobs, they can start putting money away for their retirement. So remember that. And remind them the earlier they start, the more time their money has to grow. You also need to talk about how credit works. It's important to understand credit scores and how to use credit cards because maybe this is the first time that you're going to give them a card or that they'll have a card. And then also talk about being strategic with student loans. Consider the fact that they also need to think about how they pay for things. Sometimes it's cash, sometimes it's a debit card, or sometimes it will be the credit card, depending upon the situation. And this leads into making sure they understand how to manage their debt. So it starts with avoiding debt, and maybe that's in education costs. So make sure they're looking at scholarships and grants and work-study programs. Now, those are the concepts, but here are some real habits that you can give to your 18-year-old and make sure they're adopting them. One, it's about avoiding fees. So have them have alerts, text alerts on their checking account so they can avoid overdrafts. They know when money's coming in out. They can pay attention to other items when, they may have some payments they have to make on their own. Make sure they're making them on time and how to set it up automatically so they don't get those fees. Fees will eat into their income, and if you can help them do things to avoid fees, that would be great. Also, get them to start finding ways to save money. And this isn't saving money in a savings account, but saving money on things that they buy. So talk about discounts. Talk about looking for coupons, from eating out to when they're buying clothes. And talk also about the fact that you don't always have to buy new. Used sometimes is a better value. Now, unfortunately, you also have to talk about fraud and ID theft. So, this is probably when they're going to be logging on to more public Wi-Fi spots. So they need to make sure they're careful with that. Social media and online, they're going to feel more comfortable sharing things online, and they need to be very careful with that. They also need to make sure they're not clicking on links in those areas and then talking about calls and texts. Because they're 18, they're going to be called about their accounts. They need to make sure they understand that not every call is going to be legit and that they need to verify those. And then the kind of last habit is budgeting. So have them start with a weekly spending limit. This helps them understand how long their money has to go and how long it has to last. Because remember, financial independence really starts with understanding these key money concepts and putting them into practice. That's all for this episode of the Smarter Money Life podcast. Thank you for joining me. I hope you found our discussion helpful and inspiring. You can find more resources on the Smarter Money Life page at forumcu.com. Remember, making smart financial decisions is a journey, and every step you take brings you closer to your financial dream. Be sure to tune in next time for more tips and insights on managing your money. Until then, stay smart and financially savvy.